Welcome YouTube to the instant analysis live on stream of Party Rina. So we are now moving into the area where the previous party cards had never gotten a spotlight UR. We are now into the cards that have gotten spotlight URs before and now are getting party cards. The first one is Party Rina. Okay? Now, along with Party Rina, we are also getting Bokura wa Ima no Naka de. These outfits are starting with this banner. The first being Honoka, a pure attribute SP type with like quite possibly one of the most awkward kits I've ever seen. I guess next to Move Farm Days Kanon, this is like a really weird kit. Okay, so 6592 base appeal, 67 base stamina, 8241 base technique, which means this card has a crit profile. This card, the max crit rate of this card, based on her technique, is going to be 39.72% according to Kirara. It's okay for an SR. Tap active. Again, this is a pure attribute SP type card. Her tap active increases crit rate by 7% for the next 10 notes for cards in her strategy. What? She also has the same strategy passive. Okay. Then Honoka allows you to increase your SP gauge gain by 9% for the next 30 notes only the first time you use your gauge, and this is a 100% chance. So you're guaranteed to have this LSA go off the first time you use your gauge. This kit is so all over the place that, like, you can't put it in with anything. It's a crit rate up with an appeal plus passive and an SP gauge gain LSA that you can only trigger once. What? This is a costume filler out of 10. Costume filler out of 10 card. Like, this is an SP type card that is part SP type card with the LSA, part voltage type card with her passive, and then part SK type card with her tap skill. And yes, Marth brings up a phrase that I love to use in situations like this. Jack of all trades, master of none. Can do all these random ass things, yet in this game with cards, you want your cards to be really, really, really good at one sole thing. This card does nothing well. So again, a card filler out of 10, though I am happy that we are getting Bokura wa Ima no Naka de outfits. As an aside, as a tangent, Bokura wa Ima no Naka de is right up there with Loveless World, Mermaid Festa Volume 1, and Soldier Game as my 4 favorite Muse songs. I keep the BB songs in a separate category because comedians, right? Obviously. Alright. Then we get to what we were waiting for. Party Rina. Natural attribute SP type. 11,444 base appeal. 8751 stamina. 13,464 base technique. What does this mean? This means that Rina at max limit break starts with a crit rate percentage of 55.39%. Okay? 55.39%. Now, obviously, you know, if you have a higher bonded Rena like Luna, one of our resident Rena Oshis, that number is going to skyrocket. That number is going to probably cap at 75%. Rena also has a SP gauge fill tap active, filling 9% of your SP gauge with a 33% tap active, right? That's another thing we always have to look at. What is the skill activation rate of the card? It is 33%, so it is a standard skill activation rate for URs. Passive, slightly weaker. Increase base appeal by 6.5% for cards of the same attribute. Now, we've been getting a lot of party cards recently. You know, with the advent of party cards, we've gotten so many party cards that have hybrid passives. Party Setsuna, Party Ellie, Party Maru, right? We have a lot of these cards, even Party Yo. A lot of these cards that have hybrid passives. So they'll increase appeal and technique, or appeal and stamina, right? With this particular card, the value of the card does get cut down a little bit by only having a same attribute appeal buffing passive. If this was a appeal plus technique card, it would be significantly better. That goes without saying, but the big part about this particular card and why having just the solo appeal buffing passive makes the card when you look at Rena's stat line, right? When you look at Rena's stat line, there is a lot to be desired here, right? There is definitely a lot to be desired here. Her appeal is okay. It's not great. The stamina is a lot higher than you would like. The technique is fine. The technique is fine. It's the other parts of the card. It's the 11,444 base appeal. It's the 8,751 base stamina. Here's the thing. With this particular card, at this point in the game, the people that have First Fest Emma are probably going to want to use Emma over this card. Okay? You're going to want to use Emma over this card. You're going to want to use Second Fest Daya over this card. You're going to want to use Second Fest Ruby over this card. So if you already have Daya, Ruby, and First Fest Emma, this card is a skip. Okay, the last part of the kit, I mean, I got a little bit ahead of myself there. Last part of her kit, this is the SP Gauge Bomb LSA. This is basically First Fest Kasumi's LSA. Every time you use your SP gauge, increase the voltage that you get out of your next SP gauge by 8% of her technique. Now, this part of her kit, the fact that the voltage you get off of your next gauge is increased by 8% off of her highest stat, that part of it is good. However, if I had a song where I needed to heavily favor towards natural attribute SP types, I would much rather use First Fest Emma, Second Fest Daya, and Second Fest Ruby before I even think about getting to this card. The only time I would actually use this card over something like Emma is if I have Emma and I actually haven't max limit broken Emma. It's the only time I would think about using this card over Emma. And for a lot of you that have First Fest Emma, your bond levels are probably higher on Emma than they are in Reno, which is why I favor that card over this one. Now, here's the argument to make for this card, okay? The argument to make for this card is because Second Fest Rina exists, right? For a lot of you Voltage competitors out there that scouted for Second Fest Rina, you have been using her in every single formation you humanly can, right? That also lends to a higher bond level. Higher bond level means higher stat percentage increases. Higher bond level also means you probably have higher bond board bonuses, right? What all that together means is if let's say you are playing an advanced beat map that is giving you a situation where you cannot use a Party Shioriko, or it's more detrimental to use cards like Party Shioriko or Party Kotori, and you need to shove in Party Rina with, say, Second Fest Ruby and Second Fest Daya, this card will stand on its own. And if you're somebody that's lacking, say, either Daya or First Fest Emma, or even Valentine's Day Honoka, right, you can use this card. But if I were to give an honest rating for this card, for you meta players out there, this is a skip out of 10. This is a skip out of 10. Would you eventually like to get this card? Yeah, maybe. But the way that scoring is currently now in the game, especially when it comes to what natural attribute beat maps. Justin said it in the chat, if you can see the chat. Party Koto, a lot of the times, if you're using a natural attribute team, will end up being in the slot that you're using, that this card would be in. It would normally be Second Fest Daya, Second Fest Ruby, and then Party Koto. And the reason why Party Koto gets used so much is because of her live show active. This card having both a weak passive in addition to a weak live show active means that this card will not see a lot of play, you know, especially in, like, you know, quote unquote meta compositions. Now, if you want to toss all that aside and scout for this Rina, because this is a Neko Rina, right? Neko Rina right here with Fish Puff, and she's eating a strawberry cake, right? If you want Rina for that reason and that reason alone, by all means, go ahead and scout for the card, because the card itself is not weak. It's just that I don't think that card will ever be meta. Just based on the amount of fillers that have a better combination of live show active and passive, it's really, really hard to squeeze this card in. Really, really hard to squeeze this card in. Like, it is... Oh, wait. Whoops. It is really, really hard to squeeze, you know, a Party Rina in a team, especially if you have Party Koto, and especially if you have, at the very least, only Second Fest Ruby. And for those of you wondering what the costume actually looks like, I know I don't normally do this, but because we're here, this is what Rena looks like. This is what the Rena costume looks like. Now, unfortunately, right, we can't get a preview of the alt color, but this is what the Rena on the default color looks like. And as you can see right here, her Neko ears have these nice little flowers on them, you know, with the rotating colors, right? Purple, pink, yellow, and then reversing the order going back this way. And this is on both sides right here. So yeah, the color palette is really nice. It's full of pastels and stuff like that. But you know, again, like if we're judging the card based just on the card itself and not the costume or anything, like the meta players are going to be skipping this card. Oshi Scouters, I can already tell Luna's gonna try and get this card no matter what. But yeah, Oshi Scouters are probably gonna try and get this card. For those of you that are debating whether you're not really paying attention to the meta, but you have enough gems to scout, and you're debating whether you should spark this card or not, to be perfectly honest, I would say just pass on it for now. This isn't a card that you necessarily need. I would either wait for the next Fest banner or even the next party banner. Alright guys, but thank you all for watching this instant analysis. That's going to be it for me. Come join us on Twitch sometime. Twitch.tv/IamTheChaz. Until next time, YouTube, take it easy. I'll see you all later. Bye!